Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're dialing in from, and welcome to today's webinar with myself, Nick Millward. I'm an advisor at the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, and we have a panel of experts here today from AB Handshake and Orca, where we'll explore how AI and machine learning are being used to enhance fraud detection in voice and SMS. So we'll delve into blocking methods and blacklisting strategies for fraudulent numbers or suspicious traffic patterns. We'll examine routing fraud like SIM box fraud and least cost routing manipulation, and we'll discuss their impact on call quality and cost. You'll also learn about the role of data analytics and big data in detecting trends and anomalies. So what we will do here, a live Q&A will follow for everybody. We'll talk around billing, routing, voice fraud and AI, much more. But please do put any questions in the chat on this Zoom call and we'll pick them up at the right moment in time. So it's probably time to make some introductions. So today I'm joined by Anna, Dmitry, John and Jeri, both from AB Handshake and Orca. But what I'll probably do is just let them introduce themselves a bit better. So maybe if I can start with you, Anna, first. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm head of strategic partnerships at AB Handshake. AB Handshake is a US-based fraud prevention vendor. Dmitry, over to you.
Thanks. My name is Dmitry Sumin. I'm head of products at AB Handshake. Also a colleague of Anna's. We're both based in Valencia, and happy to join today's webinars.
Thanks, Dmitry. John, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm John Rivenburgh, one of the co-founders of Orca. We provide integrated software tools to manage voice and Jeri.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeri Waite. I'm the other co-founder of Orca, working with John on all these tools to really manage your SMS and voice services.
Great, thank you, Jeri. Thank you, John and Anna and Dmitry. I think John's connection's a little bit choppy, but we will persevere. So if I can hand over to Anna now, we're going to go through around about 10 minutes on joint presentation. Anna, if we can hand over to yourself.
Yes, thank you, Nick. I believe the slides are visible for everyone. So first, I'd like to thank MEF and Nick for hosting this webinar today, and of course, our partners from Orca for making it possible to talk here about such an important topic, as the subject we're addressing today is incredibly timely. And according to the recent research, over 60% of operators report still not using artificial intelligence tools in their fraud prevention strategies. And still, fraud challenges are growing from year to year, contributing to losses of almost $40 billion annually. So today, we will discuss how the lack of artificial intelligence tools may be fueling this growth and how companies can automate and enhance their fraud management systems using artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies. So next slide, please. Yes. As fraud volumes are increasing and becoming more complex, we see operators face multiple types of fraud types and attacks on their voice and SMS communication. We see that fraudsters are now using highly advanced techniques to stay undetected. And so they automate their attacks. They sometimes use counter detection mechanisms to kind of bypass the traditional detection mechanisms, and they use various masking techniques. And here on the slide, you can see some of the examples like whitelisting test routes or generating traffic below some of the threshold-based levels. And this creates a significant challenge for mobile operators who need to block fraud without affecting legitimate traffic and their revenues. And they also need to keep their systems up to date and adapt to constantly evolving fraud techniques. And at the same time, they somehow need to minimize the human resources required for fraud investigation. And given the evolving fraud landscape, if we can switch to the next slide, please. Yes, given the evolving fraud landscape and the business needs of operators that I just mentioned, it is evident that traditional methods are no longer sufficient enough for comprehensive fraud prevention strategy. And on this slide, we can see two of the most common methods, which is block list and threshold-based rules. And effectiveness of these methods is significantly more limited compared to more advanced systems. So for example, block lists, they require constant menu updates to avoid either blocking legitimate traffic or missing fraud entirely. And at the same time, managing large prefixes lists is often very technically challenging for operators and operators fraud management teams. And speaking of the second method, which is the threshold-based rules, fraudsters easily right now can manipulate thresholds to stay undetected. As I mentioned, they're using some of the masking techniques. And this method failed to detect more sophisticated granular attacks because they're right now becoming more spread in time. And right now we see, according to the statistic, that on average, the false positive rate in more traditional fraud management system is about 25%, which is a very significant number. That being said, yes, thank you. This is why we in the industry recognize the need for more advanced and sophisticated tools based on artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions. Those systems will allow operators to better understand traffic profiles, which sometimes is influenced by natural fluctuations, like caused by seasons fluctuations, and pick up a different abnormality in the traffic behavior. Not only that, AI can help to distinguish between different types of fraud with greater precision. So for example, AI can easily pick up different patterns of zero duration calls. Whenever we talk about the difference between flash calls, Fingiri, spam, or simply missed calls, AI naturally can very well distinguish what type of call is coming to the operator network. But artificial intelligence alone is not enough. Real-time fraud prevention is becoming a necessity in the market. And AB Handshake, for example, we strongly advocate for real-time network-based artificial intelligence analysis, which is far more superior to the more common CDR-based analytics. It is because, if we can switch to the next slide. Yes, thank you. It is because real-time AI models are proactive, enabling fraud blocking as it happens before it reaches the users, the subscribers, comparing to more reactive mechanisms of CDR checks. So, for example, our approach is kind of enhanced by two complementary modes, two kind of learning modes. The first mode is unsupervised learning that can identify new fraud patterns without relying on some of the predefined parameters. Kind of picks up naturally some of the traffic abnormalities. While we also use some of the supervised learning models, and here we talk about like human intervention and cooperation between artificial intelligence and humans, like fraud management teams, because supervised learning incorporates valuable feedback from from managers to enhance and kind of configure any artificial intelligence to the specific need of every team. So these two together, those capabilities ensure operators stay ahead of all the evolving fraud tactics and those masking techniques, and they can protect their network effectively. And so this is where I would like to pass the word to our colleagues from Orca so they can elaborate further on the role of AI in the fraud prevention strategy.
Thank you, Anna. So OrcaWave provides comprehensive tools on the cost side. And one of the things I wanted to mention today is how does this partnership work between AB Handshake and OrcaWave? So you think of AB Handshake, AI Shield is in the call flow, and it's real-time managing fraud, identifying issues through their intelligent analysis and management. OrcaWave is both pre-call and post-call, and that can be a call or SMS. So OrcaWave, through our different services, we provide automated alerts as your call traffic or your messaging traffic is progressing that lets you know that there are some traffic patterns or some issues or some concerns through these services to alert you that there's an issue. We provide comprehensive analysis of your traffic. So as you prepare, as you look at all of your historical data, as you look at what AI Shield is communicating to you through their reporting process, and then post-call, what does that look like? What does the history say? And how do you get in front of this on an offensive perspective to really prevent fraud in the first place? So we provide a lot of data intelligence and analysis throughout the different types of calling patterns. And all of this is designed to fit the needs of our carrier customers or large enterprises, anyone who's aggregating large amounts of data. And we take all of that data, provide you insight. And so now you can both anticipate and also look post-call, post-AI, what was the cost of that, and how do we prevent that going forward? OrcaWave has 3 different tools that we do this by. One is all of this is through automation, but it's automated loading of all carrier services rates. It is the intelligent routing, and John Rivenburgh is going to talk more about what that does as a tool. And third is telecom expense management, in which you really analyze, once everything's done, how you're receiving your invoices from your carriers. So all of this information, and in the call flow with AI Shield, really gives you a comprehensive package of services to attack fraud. John?
Yes.
Next slide, please.
Next slide. So thank you, Jeri and Anna. So key to the cost automation management tools that our Blue Water software provide is the auto loading. The intelligent routing sits in the middle of that. And what we've designed is a hands-free set of rules that actually start with the incoming cost, supplier's cost. You can accept all the rates and all the codes, whether it's voice or messaging. You can block up front. You can do contract compliance. And so we have a series of global and supplier-specific rules that fine-tune what you want to leverage in your routing tools from each one of suppliers' offers. And we do thousands of cost sheets, both voice and messaging, every week. Then we're also analyzing, we've got billions, across our customers, we have billions of call detail records and SMS records every month that we process. We look for trends and do a lot of the active trend analysis to complement the AI Shield product, which is in the call flow, as Jeri mentioned, and doing it real time. We take your discrete traffic via voice or messaging, and we establish what we call routing plans. And each plan has its own little rule set about who are the customers, what are the suppliers, what's the product you want to design. And it can go down to the dial code, the MMC code, or even the fully dialed international and North America phone numbers. So it's very, very well refined and highly automated, because we're getting cues from your inbound traffic and call detail records. We're getting cues from cost sheet updates, new dial codes and price changes. And we're constantly in the position, if you want us to automatically update your routing, both for termination and origination-based routing. So it's a very, very powerful engine that is completely switching platform agnostic. and can integrate with vendor switches, OpenSIP, and any type of switching engine. And even it's designed so the business people can do the routing directly onto the switch. And the highly technical translation text can focus on OM log files from the switching platform for enhanced customer service. So we find that the routing element is a key component of this offense and defense associated with dealing with fraud and dealing with these bad actors that are trying to basically steal from your customers and steal from you through abhorrent phone call and fraud behavior. And thank you. Are there any questions? I throw it back to Nick if questions have come in.
Yeah, well, perhaps we'll cover those if you're okay with you, John, at the end. Again, I'll just repeat myself. If people do have questions, please put them in the chat. I'm seeing a couple come in already, but we'll try and cover them maybe at the end. They weren't directly related to your part there, John, so it probably makes sense that we carry on for now. So what we'll do is, if everybody's fine with this, we'll move into more of a kind of panel type discussion between the five of us. And as I say, please put any questions relating to this or anything you've already heard in the chat function on Zoom. But Jeri, if I could come to you first. So maybe when they first approach it, what is, in your opinion, the biggest mistake or misconception telcos have about cost optimization?
That's a very good question, Nick. And there are common mistakes made. Customers really get desperate about fraud, right? This is a huge issue. You're a carrier, and all of a sudden you have a fraud hit, and now you're in a panic. And even though you might be a PTT or a very large organization, crisis happens, and everyone's trying to respond. And so they'll look for a solution. And in this case, we have a wonderful solution in our partner with AB Handshake. But the mistake is you really need to look at it as a comprehensive solution. So look at not just putting together what are you going to be doing to manage the calls or the messaging as they come in, but what do you need to do proactively ahead of that? Put into place some solutions, intelligent solutions that analyze historical data, that take all the information from AB Handshake's solution and factor that into what do we need to do differently. With our particular tool, of course, one of those solutions is the intelligent routing piece that John was just talking about. So that would be, how do you proactively get in front of this? How do you block those calls? How do you block that destination? How do you block that single phone number down to the very time, ahead of time, rather than waiting for it to become a fraud issue? So it's a multi-purpose. And then at the end, so post-call, post your AI solution, you get all of that, and then you look at, well, what did we learn? What did we lose? What did we gain? Make sure you understand where you started, what the profitability opportunity was with these wonderful tools that we've introduced here, and analyze it so you have a good story to tell so that you can let your customers know that they can be confident that you are doing everything you can to really block fraud and manage this current environment that we have that is very difficult and constantly is very dynamic and very changing. So that's what I suggest. It's pre-event happening and post. Have a long-term strategy.
Yeah, I think what I see personally from, I'm involved in a whole broad range of kind of discussions at the MEF, and this topic comes up, very, very often. And I think, what we see is that this fraud is as well on the rise. It's kind of, it's not going away. If anything, it's getting slightly worse. But I think as well, with obviously the advent and the adoption of these tools, we are seeing that it is having a very positive impact. And what I'm not seeing at the moment is kind of everybody joining that, that kind of chain in terms of putting a solution together for it. So I think it's great that we're kind of telling people that you've got to start building this into the strategy. So, John,
be proactive. Yes.
Be proactive, yeah, not reactive. Absolutely. Right. So, John, if I could maybe come to you next. I mean, perhaps in terms of more the commercials, just to try and highlight this, because this is at the root of all businesses. So, could you give me an idea of what might we look to, or a company look to save on implementing a CDR reconciliation solution?
Well, it's pretty astounding what we've uncovered across our clients. And there are both fraudulent behavior, but also there are general billing and settlement errors. And we attack both of them. Because the way we look at it is each call detail record, each SMS record is like a mini P&L. It's got a rate and it's got a cost. And so that is kind of the truth of our customer, their data from their switch. Now, they send the traffic to suppliers across the globe, and each one of those suppliers have their own truth, and they're using those individual discrete call and messaging activities to generate the invoice. Unfortunately, because of mergers and acquisitions and systems complexity, invoices are not being generated correctly. So what our tool set, our telecom expense management, which is the other piece of our cost management tool, analyzes on a granular basis each one of those individual millions and millions of both phone numbers and call records. And we're seeing almost 6, and in some cases, 20% overbilling. I mean, it is really enormous. It's large money. And on our slide, we talked about revenue recapture. And that's a big piece of where we find is taking the records of our customer, taking the records of our supplier, doing advanced algorithm and CDR and SMS mapping against them, and really come up to, well, what's the truth? Because at the end of the day, both parties want to bill and make payments correctly. And so that's where we see our role is really ferreting out the fraud, but also making sure that cost is truly invoiced correctly to each one of their customers.
I think, again, from what I see, it's no longer a nice to have. In a lot of countries, a lot of regions around the world, there's a lot of regulation in place. So, this stuff has to be right. Otherwise, potential fines and all the rest of it could far outweigh some of the potential relevant kind of minor fraud that you might see on the network, but it creates a much bigger problem. And the one thing that you said there that really resonates with me, in this space, in this mobile tech space, there is so much merger and acquisition work at the moment, and I think virtually every company that I deal with, is having challenges in that area. So super. So if we change tack slightly, and I'll come to Anna next, if that's okay. Anna, from your perspective, in terms of number intelligence services, what can you tell us about that? In terms of being part of a comprehensive strategy.
That's actually a very good question. Thank you, Nick. So as I mentioned on one of the slides, some of the kind of common methods that are usually form a part of fraud prevention, actually number intelligence can be a part of the slide because, especially because of the ease of integration of this solution, right? So you can just easily query any high risk number database to check the number against it. And the thing is that those databases, the number intelligence is actually good for what is supposed to be used for. So for example, to check if the number is unassigned or and allocate it, or, for example, to check the history of a number. But what we see more and more is that those databases cannot be used solely as kind of a fraud prevention method. They can form a part of a more multi-layered system, because, of course, checking the history of a number is useful, right? So, for example, if I check the number and it is present in a database, it does raise the probability of this number being involved in the attack. But if I check the number and the number is not present in the database, by no means this number is safe. So, for example, in AB Handshake, whenever we talk about this multi-layered approach and using artificial intelligence to detect fraud in real time, of course, we do leverage some of the number intelligence kind of as a part of the whole fraud prevention system. What we see more and more is that a lot of live numbers and the numbers belonging to real subscribers being used in fraudulent attacks because of a lot of spoofing that is going on. And this is why we're talking about artificial intelligence. This is why we talk about pattern analysis, right? Because number intelligence is important part of the fraud prevention strategy that should be fortified by some of the more advanced mechanisms.
Great. There's one thing you said there that resonates with me personally. You said that this is kind of pretty straightforward or easy to implement. So could you, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you kind of give the listeners some indication on how long it might take to implement these types of services? Are we talking a day, a week, a month? How long?
We're talking about artificial intelligence, right? Being implemented in the network. Of course, of course, it depends a lot on because as I mentioned in my presentation, there are different, like artificial intelligence by itself can be applied in different modes. So sometimes we're talking about near real time and non-real time, right? Artificial intelligence used to analyze CDRs. And this is quite a straightforward method, right? But for example, what we do at AB Handshake, we're doing real time. So network integration, network analytics is very important to be real time, to be proactive, as we discussed. And of course, that might take slightly longer times. Here I would refer to Dmitry as the product expert to talk about the time frame for usual implementation and like what we usually see in the projects.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Anna. So, of course, we do see that actually the complexity of that integration is also decreasing because the operators, first of all, they are recognizing the fact that they would need to implement more advanced solutions, and they, from their side, doing a lot of great work to actually simplifying the integration, creating standardized APIs, and also, of course, with how equipment evolves, it gives actually also a lot of easy to use integration points. I would say to integrate a pre-trained and ready to go AI solution, it could take under a month or potentially a bit longer if you have a complex network geographically, a big one with redundancy and things like that. But ultimately, it's not a big difficult tool. Of course, not difficult job. Of course, it would take years to build your own AI from scratch. But if you're just already taking something which is existing and just applying that to your traffic, it's really not a very complex task after all.
Yeah, and even further to elaborate actually on the next question, it's not only about like how long it will take me as an operator to integrate it into my network, which is an important question, but how long will it take me to train the artificial intelligence to actually to start picking up the fraudulent patterns. So, and of course, it depends on the solution. For example, for us, because we work globally and the solution is usually come pre-trained, but of course, if operators start developing their own in-house AI from scratch, it will take, I would say, years to build it from scratch and to train it to pick up accurately without false positives, so like with a low percent of false positives, right? Pick up fraudulent patterns.
Yeah, and Anna, from our perspective, and I think what I also hear you saying is, as you're doing that, as you're building it internally, which is always an option for these very large enterprise or carrier customers, the market's changing. So not only are you trying to build based upon your history or what you think of the issue today, now there's 12 other things that have come up. And so that's one of the things that we see is you really, to build it internally is very difficult. Whereas here you have an AI expert. You have an intelligent analysis routing group that are experts. That's all we do. We don't have all these other requirements to manage work. And so getting an expert, I think, makes a lot of sense. I also will say in our work with AB Handshake, in this particular partnership, we have been very open to letting a client have a proof of concept to try it. Take a bit of your network, see how it works, prove it. And then the internal sale is so much easier, especially when you have a lot of different factions in a large organization and they all have their own ideas of how things to work. It really helps get buy-in from the technical groups, from the IT organizations, from the security organization, which is also very important in today's market, that this is truly a remarkable, relatively short implementation service that they can immediately subscribe to and benefit for in just a few months.
That's great. We've been doing quite a bit of work at the MEF with Oxford University on their AI program. And, if I go back around 12 months, we were talking, it takes in the years sometimes to build the models and get enough data until it works properly. So it's pretty staggering now, only 12 months on. We're talking in potentially under a month, we can get something, up and running that works. That's just, I think it just goes to show how important and also the rate that AI is advancing at the moment. So, again, as Jeri just said, if there's people out there that are a bit confused to this or want to know more, these are the experts and kind of almost a try before you buy option is there. So come and talk to us. So let's move on from that, but let's stay, if we can, with the machine learning and AI side. And if I can turn to you, Dmitry, can you tell us a little bit more around data privacy? Maybe touch on VoLTE and SIP, which is very relevant still at the moment. Is detection any different there? Could you just talk to us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, sure. So the data privacy, of course, is a very big concern from every operator. That's, I think, one of the first things we do discuss with any potential customer, because regardless of how good the tool is, if the operator doesn't have green light from their legal department, from their security department, if they are not able to implement a solution due to some national regulations, they won't be able to go ahead with that. So, of course, the security concern, the data privacy concern is always there. Kind of putting my product hat on, really early in the day, we made the decision for voice not to work with the RTP layer. So, of course, it does provide a lot of information about the call, but we decided that no, due to specifically the data privacy regulation, we won't do that. Working on the signaling level, on the contrary, it's really easy to create a tool which would allow you will provide you with great results, would provide you with a lot of allow you to detect fraud in real time without actually working and kind of compromising any private data. The only element of private data that we do touch upon within the analysis is the subscriber's number, but even that can be easily anonymized. If you apply correctly anonymization rules, you can just utilize let's say masks or hash numbers, and that doesn't affect the solution's efficiency in any way. So without compromising any subscriber data, you can still provide have a really great analysis. Because also that's what the AI is good as. It doesn't drill in very deeply into a specific case. It actually looks at the pattern in the aggregate, and that of course is its strength. Same for SMS. While of course it is a very, let's say, delicate thing when the fraud prevention team would read people's messages to identify fraudulent cases, the AI working in supervised mode can be the excellent solution to actually overcome any constraints and any currently existing limitations as to what the operator can do with the SMS.
And what about, I think this is talked a lot, but what about AI putting these fraud teams, humans out of work? What's your view on that, if you have any?
I think actually, luckily, maybe artificial intelligence is not, and maybe hopefully won't be able in the near future to replace human intelligence. Actually, what they do is they actually quite well coexist. They go hand in hand, because what the AI is doing, it is looking at very significant data volumes, like it's billions and billions of calls, billions and billions of messages on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And it's really good at detecting the anomalies. So anything which doesn't look right, the AI will pick it up, and the person just doesn't need to look manually into rows and rows and rows of data. Of course, then the ultimate decision to apply a rule, to develop a company policy in accordance with certain fraud type, to make some other key decisions, that's for what the fraud expert is for. And of course, that's something that the machine won't be able to take away. It will take away the boring part of the job. It will take away the part where the human error can actually be also, well, potentially detrimental to the company, but it will not take away completely the decision effort. It will not work instead of the fraud prevention team. It really could be a great assistant tool.
Yeah, I think
you
we
have to apply the human intelligence to it too, to make it most effective. I think that's our point with the overall solution: the pre-call, the pre-message, the post, and then the AI solution in the middle of it in call routing. I mean, you have to apply the big picture with that intelligence.
Yeah, we're not quite there in terms of the robots completely taking over.
Oh, no.
I think we're seeing that in most sectors now. You know, if you think about legal, marketing, you know, various sectors, even automated vehicles, it's still, you know, we're at that stage, and we will be for the foreseeable, where it, you know, it will help, but it won't replace at this stage. So yeah, very much aligned. So I suggest we probably move to the floor now, and I think we probably got around 5-10 minutes ish to go. We can probably extend that slightly, but if I go to the floor, I'm just going to check on questions come through. We've got a few questions, so I'll start with this. I don't know who wants to take this one, but I'll read it out, and please jump in. Otherwise, I'll pick on one of you, and that'll be horrible. So the question we've got is: how do you detect false positive and negative results?
Yeah, so that's always a big concern maybe from the customers. Okay, so how do I know? How do I know this is functioning correctly? So this is done typically in two ways. So first of all, initially, of course, in the early stages of development of the AI tool itself, and then when you start working with a new customer, there is a kind of manual feedback loop when the results of the solution are manually reviewed, and some cases where a different decision should have been made are marked out to the solution. And this is kind of fed back constantly into the tool, into the engine. Then, of course, this process actually helps it to evolve itself, and at later stages, it's capable of unsupervised learning when just by the change of the basically the tool, but this time knows what is the correct change of the behavior after the rules applied. If this change does not occur, it will improve itself, which will redefine the model image in order to make sure that actually the traffic is now back to the normal, back to where the tool wants it to be.
Okay, great. Anything else to add to that? Okay. So there's another question.
Well, a question that I would have with that is the correct change of behavior. How is that done? Is it looking at the analysis post call?
It can happen in many ways. For example, if you're looking at the call patterns. So, for example, if you correctly isolate a fraudulent instance of fraudulent attack, and then you correctly block that, it goes away, so the traffic is back to normal. If you, for example, miss out a part of the range, you would see that, for example, the attack has decreased in volume, but there's still some instances from another part of the range, or there's still some parts of the behavior which weren't addressed. So in this case, of course, the tool needs, okay, so in these cases, I apply maybe a wider blockage. Or, for example, the other case is that when the application of specific blockage leads to actually a decrease of traffic towards below the volumes where it should normally be, then of course the tool may consider, for example, now more narrow blocking. That's just one simple example, but of course there are multiple parameters to be considered, and which are considered in real time.
Good.
Thanks, Dmitry. Next question I've got is when 5G interconnect is prevalent, will we need AI? Anybody like to take that one?
I'll jump on that. I hate to steal the thunder, but okay, I'll try to address that. So the idea is that what we do see that how the network nodes and how the networks evolve, it does affect, let's say, the technology itself. So how data is transmitted between the network nodes, how technically the call is handled. What it really doesn't change, it doesn't change human behavior. So once the AI tool is trained on certain patterns which are normal for how people call other people, how businesses contact their customers, it's actually the same pattern would be still the correct normal pattern, even if the network is upgraded from 3G to 4G, from 4G to 5G. So all the normal observations are still valid, and the data accumulated on, let's say, more legacy networks is still valid, and these observations and calling patterns, which are already part of a, let's say, experienced AI tool, will still be valid going on with any future network upgrade. So it's just a question of how you interconnect the tool with the network, but all the models contained within the tool are still totally valid.
Okay, thank you. The last one I've got in here, I think that we've got time for, if I can ask this, if anybody knows. So the question is, what role does collaboration between telco providers, regulators, and solutions providers as yourself take?
I guess I can start answering this, and then maybe someone else would add to that. So whenever we talk about, for example, limitations of AI, one of the biggest limitations that I see at least when we talk to some of our customers and partners is the quality of data that is on which AI is being trained, because AI would be only as good as the data which it trains on, right? So whenever we talk about like high accuracy artificial intelligence, we need to think about high quality data that enters the artificial intelligence engine. And for example, this can be done by various kind of modes, right? So we can take, like, for example, global data. Sometimes we can simulate some of the scenarios for kind of this artificial training. But what's more important is actually data sharing, because the more data AI would have, the better the detection results would be. So for example, AB Handshake, we're collaborating a lot with GSMA, the high risk number platform, reporting a lot what we can report to provide the industry with this intelligence and with fraud detection, so they can actually enhance their internal systems. And this is what we also do. As much intelligence, high quality data that we can use for our artificial intelligence, we are using it. And collaboration between telcos and regulatory bodies is kind of the only way to fortify the strategy. But this is kind of my perspective more from the business development side of things, I would say, and talking to our partners and customers. Dmitry, do you think anything else to add on the technical side of things?
Yeah, sure. I think there's still a significant concern from the regulators as to empower the operators to apply some call handling practices. You say we do see that in many countries it is still illegal, or it's not recommended to, for example, block traffic, even if it is, well, very likely to be fraudulent. I think in part that is also a part of the kind of the older paradigm of fraud prevention, when the kind of preventive overblocking led to the fact that actually kind of a denial of service situation, when actually the customer cannot leverage his phone because like everything is just blocked. I think actually this is a good time in our kind of, we're now in a good time to actually review that policy and actually to actually have this dialogue between the operator and the regulators, that actually we now in possession of a highly accurate tool that actually confidently identifies the call as fraudulent. And so if I block this call, I actually do a good thing for my customer. I actually protect him from a really he potentially could get scammed, he potentially can be affected. So actually I think the evolving of fraud prevention solution actually can lead to a new step in this dialogue between the operator and the regulator.
Right, I think that answered that very well. But anything else to add on that, Jeri or John?
Well, I would add, I think that's really an interesting point, Dmitry, about countries. Some countries actually prevent the blocking of calling. If you look at routing management, if you take the AI intelligence in that particular example and you apply that to routing, there is nothing in that we've ever experienced that says you cannot change how traffic flows. So you can eliminate routes, you can eliminate a specific country, a destination calls into a particular from into a particular country that's problematic. And you do that all through intelligent routing. And so there might be a really good way to partner that to really address that issue without violating, a country's rule or requirement to prevent the blocking of calling. Do you agree, John?
Yeah, and to add to that, Jeri, there's a security issue and then there's a consumer issue that each regulator is looking at. Security issue is saying, I don't want any of my call detail records to leave the border of my country. Their privacy, they're my customers. And so with cloud-based solutions that both companies provide, we can maintain call detail records, SMS records, those databases in country. So the regulator is in highly secure, encrypted situations and vaults. But protecting the consumer is you do have to be aggressive about losing money, both from the operator, but also through bank frauds and illegal connections to try and get users to give up their bank identifier through text message URLs and things like that. So that's in the regulator's interest. And by keeping it all in country, which both of our deployments can occur in that methodology, we maintain that security, but also enhance the consumer and operator experience.
Great. So I think there's been a few more questions coming online, and I think some of those have been answered in the chat, but I think we'll need to perhaps come to a wrap up of the Q&A session now. But just before we finish, if I can come to each of you and just ask you, there's obviously been a lot of information here over the last 45, 50 minutes or so. If I could just ask each of you just to give the audience or the listeners just one thing to take away from this, the most important thing for you. And I'll kind of go in reverse from before. So if I can come to you first, John. I've given you no time to think about that, so apologies.
Well, fraud and the issues around it they're very clever, evil actors that are generating, and you have to have systems and automation and AI tools to really combat it effectively. And that's kind of my takeaway, is that we bring a partnership that allows from analytics to blocking to cost management end to end.
Right, thank you. And Jeri?
Yeah, and I would certainly second that, but it's really having a comprehensive, intelligent response to strategy to how do you address fraud. It's bigger than one tool. It's multi-tools. It's multi-action, and it's the human intelligence on top of that. That would really make an effective package that will be dynamic enough to carry forward into the future as things change in the market.
That's great. Thank you, Jeri. And Dmitry?
Yeah, sure. I think one thing I would take from that is some of the traditional fraud prevention methods, some of the legacy fraud prevention methods, be that a database of known fraudulent numbers or like a rule in the system, is like you're hit by a fraud and you think, okay, how do I prevent that from happening next time? But then next time you're hit with another type of fraud. What AI gives you is the power to prepare your system for any type of fraud, regardless did you have this experience in the past or not. And I think that's actually the game changer that the AI brings to the table.
Great. And the last word from the panel, please, Anna.
Yes, I think also the game changer consists in not only just providing kind of back-end protection to your customers, to your users, your subscribers, but it's also to form a very comprehensive strategy and how it will also affect, for example, your marketing activities and your kind of reputation on the market. Because what we see more and more operators are shifting toward providing like fraud prevention as a service, some value-added services to their enterprise users, right, to protect their traffic, to protect their communications, to restore trust in voice and SMS, because we're seeing decline, we're seeing lack of responses to the more traditional communication. And I believe our goal and the goal of artificial intelligence is to restore trust of the users to the traditional communication channels, being said like calls and messages.
Right, with trust being the key word, I think. So I just want to kind of wrap up from my side. The things I heard loud and clear was that we're clearly talking to the AI experts here around fraud detection. So obviously come and get in touch if you want to hear more. There is a try before you buy option, of course, to see how this works. And obviously don't worry, this isn't going to replace your jobs. So thank you very much to everybody, to AB Handshake and Orca Wave. And thanks to you for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.